Welcome to Channel X TV. Delighted to be joined by Kristin today. And we're going to be discussing B2B buyer journeys for British manufacturers. But first of all, Kristin, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm based here in Boston, and we just got our first snowfall, so it's lovely.
Oh, I haven't been to Boston for years, but we're in for some bad weather in the UK, strong winds and rain, so it's going around a bit.
Sorry.
But talking about British weather, which we always talk about, let's switch to talk about British manufacturers. And actually, I'm probably less interested in the manufacturers than I am the business to business buyers. And what I really want to talk about first is, what does a B2B buyer want? And how does this kind of compare to the B2C buying journey? Are they becoming more and more or less similar? Are people reflecting what they do in their consumer buying, in their business buying? What are people looking for?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I mean you're spot on. We're all just human at the end of the day. Therefore, we're all consumers. We have to buy stuff, and we've been trained in our day-to-day lives on uh, easy access to whatever it is that we want whenever we want it. If that's going into a store, if that's doing research before or after online, if it's going on social media to see what the latest, hottest things are out there, maybe even purchasing in social media. This is what we know. And that that expectation doesn't really change when I go into the office and I am purchasing for my business. It's almost like a real hard disconnect when it's something drastically different. Just a really frustrating experience when I don't have that ease of research, being able to find the information that I want, where I expect to find it, making sure that it fits with all of the requirements. They're not personal requirements, they're requirements that my company has said that I need to meet. That's an expectation that I have as a business buyer because I know it's possible as a consumer. I absolutely know it's possible. So you're spot on. That is the expectation of a B2B buyer these days. And some of them are getting it, and some of them definitely are not.
So I find this really interesting, and I kind of get it. If, for instance, maybe I work in human resources and I've got to buy the office a new coffee machine. It's a nice purchase. It's like a consumer purchase. Or maybe I'm putting on an event and I need badges and lanyards and table decorations. But is this buyer journey translating down to when I want to buy nuts and bolts and wire and cable and metal and transistors? Are people still looking for that sort of consumer experience?
Yeah, I'd say similar. I think the expectations are the same. Let's go with that. So we've got this amazing customer that makes all of the bubble wrap, the packaging supplies,
Yeah,
or when you go into the grocery store and the meat has the
the shrink
seal
wrap
over it.
plastic.
Yes. Imagine a company that produces all of that. There's just really interesting specifications that when a business buyer is looking for all of those things, they need to understand how sturdy it is. Is it food grade? Will it be biodegradable? Is all of these crazy things that you never in a personal life probably ever have to consider, but a business buyer does. This company had a guy named Carl who was like the best salesperson at the company and wasn't even in sales. All the salespeople would tap into Carl because Carl knew everything about all of the products. He knew how they were manufactured, what ingredients went into it, what were the best materials went into it, what were the best end uses for any given product, what combinations of products would work best together. Unfortunately, all that information was basically in Carl's head. um, And that's not good for the business. That's not really great for the business buyer because they have to wait for the salesperson to go find Carl and Carl's availability and put Carl on the phone to be able to explain all of these things to the buyer. So that's where the sort of breakdown happens these days, is businesses that are selling to business buyers haven't caught up yet to how to democratize all of that really complex information about products, put it into context for, I'm searching for the filler inside of a packaging, but you're searching for the meat wrapper, right? Like we have different contexts and different information we want to get, but we still want to get it fast. We want to get it complete. We want to know that it checks all of our boxes. We don't want to have to wait for Carl.
Now, I think something that's interesting that came out of your research is that something like 79% of all B2B manufacturers are now selling on marketplaces. And actually, when it comes to retail e-commerce, more like 84% of manufacturers. And kind of what's driving this, and how much more complex does it make that experience of getting Carl's product knowledge to be placed in front of the right buyer at the right time?
Yeah, oh gosh, it's that omni-channel explosion that the B2C world has tackled maybe a decade ago and are still trying to and still struggling with. But those complexities of a B2B purchase makes it even harder. But the opportunity is huge, and the savvy B2B businesses know it, right? I mean, marketplace is just, it's so funny, like words, how they've changed over time. Like a traditional old school marketplace was like Saturday morning. You would go to your, right, like your neighborhood marketplace. All of the stalls would pop up and you'd find new things. The entire community would come in. They would know that there were some reliable vendors who were going to show up, and then they knew there would be surprise and delight vendors that they never saw before. They could meet their neighbors. It was a real curated community. It's the same concept now in digital world, and these marketplaces bring certain communities to the table. They have curated their product collections to make sure it's relevant for their buyers. There's specialized marketplaces specifically in B2B that also help narrow down the product selection for those, specific industries, specific needs that business buyers have. So it's access to those communities. It's access to this broader reach that they wouldn't necessarily have, in their normal distribution models, or even if they're selling on their own e-commerce site. We found on our research that something like 43% of British B2B businesses are going to be expanding their digital sales strategy this coming year, with more than a third predicting that their revenues are going to come from those new digital channels. So they're like betting a lot on this digital shift.
And how's the kind of that B2C online shopping experience helping to drive sales in the B2B world? And I'm thinking, I'm guessing a business buyer probably knows what they want a lot more than me. I'd be like looking for a product, probably not even knowing what the name is, but the business buyer probably at least has an idea of what the name is, or a product spec. So how are they copying and the consumer buying experience, and how does that help drive sales?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in a couple of ways. It depends also on the industry and the type of product that you're buying, but some B2B businesses have set up these portals that basically mirror an e-commerce site, and they actually just have a lot more information, right? But the ones that do it the best have the ability to make sure that if you have been buying and you knew that the code of the one product, which was some crazy code like XDY, com something or other, right? A nonsensical SKU number, essentially. But that you buy any collection of those. So you've got like your order form in front of you. You want to be able to search this brand portal for that, because that's how you knew how to buy for like the last 10 years. And they're training that buyer to look now at the actual product description, like the name of it, the brand of it, how environmentally responsible it is, the impact on the environment, like bringing in the more values of the company, the impact to their business. So the value of the product that they're buying, not just the SKU. They're really changing gradually the mindset of that traditional buyer who just looked at a checklist and then had to fill in the order form, by giving them a lot more context, imagery, pictures. Oh my gosh, we have this amazing a customer who basically sells to, they're a distributor who sells electrical equipment to service people. I went to their website recently and I was like, okay, let's see what they're doing to transform that buying experience. I land on a page for electrical tape. I'm like, it's electrical tape. You know, at home, I've got one, it's black, it's kind of, rubbery.
Oh no, you've got to have the right color.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know there were colors. They had the most beautiful sheet that described all of the different colors that you can get. And it had the specifications and like there are different use cases apparently for electrical tape. Some are good for one application, some are good for a different application. Sometimes it depends on how old your home is and what kind of electrical wiring you have. Fascinating, right? Like that's an amazing buying experience that is now happening for business buyers in the moment that they need it. The one thing actually that's also benefiting this buying experience for businesses and for buyers is with all of that rich contextual information that's being displayed, returns are going down. Because imagine like you're on site, you're an electrician, you need supplies, you want to go to a place you can find the right information exactly for the problem you're trying to solve right now. If you get the wrong product, you're never going back, right? Like you'll find a different place that's more reliable. You might not return it, you might, but either way, business is done for that company with that particular buyer. So having the right information really contextualized helps decrease returns overall, but also increase customer lifetime value for these business buyers.
I'm interested in kind of the big benefits of selling on to B2B marketplaces. I guess you could almost argue that a business buyer could just go onto a normal B2C marketplace and buy the same product, but there's so many things they want, like invoicing and credit terms. I mean, I'm the buyer, so I want to buy goods, but the accountant's going to pay the bill at the end of the month. So there's certain things businesses want, and VAT receipts, for example. But what are the big benefits of selling on the marketplaces and making product available to that wider audience?
Yeah, you have to absolutely take care of some of that hygiene stuff on these B2B marketplaces. So you have to know that that's being cared for. But the benefits, actually, the research that we did, we asked exactly that. And the top 3 answers were 1, access to that wider customer base that we talked about. So expanding your reach. 2 was increased brand visibility and actually ability to keep up with competitors. That's a big one, right? If your competitor gets there first and expands their market share and brand visibility, right? So it's being able to be competitive and get your brand known, because B2B brands might not have a strong buying motion than a B2C brand. And the 3rd most common cited benefit was enabling a much faster sales cycle. So taking care of all of those hygiene things, but also getting you access to the products as quickly as possible. So those are the top 3 cited benefits from our survey.
with so many British manufacturers, I think the number was 93% selling on marketplaces. Can you give some examples of really successful B2B marketplaces that are driving the biggest change and seeing basically the biggest results for sellers?
Yeah, I mean, it would just be silly if I didn't mention the biggest one of them all, Amazon Business.
Amazon.
I mean, it would be crazy if I didn't mention them, but Amazon Business, I think, launched in 2015. So it's been around more recently, I suppose, but it's, gosh, a force in the B2B e-commerce sector. They're influencing crazy purchase behaviors, setting those new standards for online procurement, right? So they're pushing that B2B experience into digital, into speed to buy, speed to find, all of those things. It's really redefined the marketplace. Okay, but if you take Amazon aside, we've gone and we've looked and we found actually pretty crazy examples in specific countries. So take India. They have this marketplace called India Mart. It's the largest online B2B marketplace. Does the same basic thing. It connects buyers with suppliers, tons of different industries. They are shaking up India's B2B sector. You've got one in China called DH Gate. It's same concept, right? A huge variety of products, electronics, apparel, serves millions of registered buyers and sellers worldwide. I mean, it's amazing how we think about marketplaces like Amazon where it's access, but I don't know the impact in those other massive, massive markets like India and China. And I feel like we are, in our Western world, sort of missing big markets. And it's interesting to be able to go and find DH Gate and India Mart and see and test as a business seller what those might do for really expanded access to new markets.
And I think it's interesting because, again, even here in the UK, it's not just Amazon. We've got Mano who've opened up Mano Pro for tradesmen. And Plain and Simple is trying to do the same for building supplies. So I think this is just going to grow and grow and grow. And as you say, watch Amazon because they're blazing the trail for everyone that's following.
Yes.
But before I let you go, I'd love to hear a bit more about Akeneo and how you can help British manufacturers drive their sales forward. What do you do for businesses?
Yeah, no, thanks for asking. So Akeneo is the product experience company, which basically means all of those buying experiences, whether you're a consumer or you're a business buyer, all of the rich information that you want to find, all of those images, the videos, the technical descriptions. That's what Akeneo does. Helps those businesses to get the information out of Carl's head.
That's all this product information that Carl knows.
Please, Carl, please, let's put it into a database. Let's enrich it with all of the other things that Carl can't do, like, scale to all digital channels all the time, have all of the best imagery, all the latest repair details and replacement part information. Put that all into one single source of truth for your entire product catalog. That's what Akeneo helps businesses do. And then syndicate that out wherever that product information needs to go. It's advertising channels, it's marketing campaigns, it's your
B2B marketplaces.
B2B marketplaces. It's actually great for these use cases around customer support. So you want to make sure that your customer service agent has all of that access as well when B2B buyers in particular are calling up and asking questions about replacement parts and so on. So it's really centralizing that information, making it really rich and relevant to support these new demands that are out there. B2B, B2C, direct to consumer, any business model in between, that's really what Akeneo is used for. And we've seen really great examples of getting that information sorted and ready and dynamic for any business opportunity or crisis. We've got this B2B company called Sokomore. I love B2B companies because you just never know, but they serve the world. So Sokomore is a business that sells to airports and airlines. COVID hits. So like all the industrial goods that they have, you think, oh boy, they're going to be in trouble. But they had their catalog ready to go. They scanned through their catalog and selected what would be appropriate for the moment, which was COVID. So they were selling things like hand sanitizer, gloves, masks, because the guys who are like telling the plane where to go, they don't want to be breathing fumes all day long. So they had a lot of COVID relevant consumer supplies. So they went into their Akeneo database, tagged all of those, enriched them for a consumer audience, spun up an e-commerce site, sold those products to us as consumers because we were buying those things in bulk. And then coming out of COVID, airlines are back in business. Everyone's traveling again. Now they have 2 routes to market that they can rely on. So this getting that information ready for any opportunity or crisis really helps the businesses be more flexible and meet buyer needs.
And one thing I love is product information, because I've dealt with marketplaces for so many years, and all the way back to, and I'm going to say words that will make people shudder, things like Amazon attributes and eBay item specifics. If you've not got that product information sorted, it's just impossible to get onto marketplaces and get going.
Absolutely, you've got that right.
But Kristin, I want to thank you so much for your time today. It's been fascinating, and we must come back again and talk B2B marketplaces again.
I love it. I'll be back.